Castle is one of the oddest operators in Rainbow Six Siege. And when I say odd, I'm not really referring to his gadget, his guns, or really anything about him, but more so how different players use Castle, and how that affects the change that Ubisoft decides to make to him. Castle, in my opinion, has one of the highest skill gaps of any operator in this game. So much so that if a Castle doesn't do his job correctly when it comes to blocking off certain lines of sight, that will determine the outcome of a match. And I don't really think you can say the same about a lot of other operators. Yes, the specific positionings of, say, an Evil Eye or one of Melusi's Banshees can play a role in whether or not you win a match, but you'll never lose a match because of the positioning of a Banshee or an Evil Eye. That's just bad defense. However, when it comes to Castle, how a Castle uses the armor panels can either help or hurt your team, and so this creates a dilemma. For a long time, a huge portion of the community has voiced their opinion that they think Castle is an operator who desperately needs a rework of some sort. However, I believe that it's the skill gap that comes with Castle that makes it difficult for the developers to really change anything about him. Make Castle a little better and he will absolutely dominate in the higher ranks and in Pro League. Make him a little worse and his pick rate will plummet to even worse than it already is. And I think that's why we see Castle in sort of a limbo. The most impactful change that has happened to him is the addition of the Super Shorty, and with the release of Operation Stillwave, he will receive the new proximity alarm. So this is 2 tweaks to Castle's loadout in the past 2 seasons in a row, and that gives us an idea of what Ubisoft is thinking. They definitely want to increase Castle's pick rate by making these small tweaks that don't really have an insane impact on Castle. Yes, Castle getting Super Shorty is great and gives him more utility for setting up sight, but he's already had impact grenades. However, in Operation Stillwave, they're going to get rid of his impact grenades and give him the new proximity alarm. So the overall utility with Castle has changed in that he gets to choose between 2 intel gadgets while keeping the ability to make rotates. But nobody outside the Pro League will be picking Castle solely because he can have a proximity alarm as well as a Super Shorty. Those are great benefits, but you're not going to be picking Castle solely because of that. And a majority of players don't pick an operator because of the secondary gadgets. It's obvious that the 2 biggest factors that go into how often an operator is picked is their primary gadget and their primary weapon. And Castle's primary gadget and weapon is what has put him in this sort of limbo. Let's take a look at his primary weapon first because this will be the easiest. And by primary weapon, I'm talking about the UMP-45 and not his shotgun. The UMP-45 is, in my mind, the worst gun in the game. I absolutely loathe this gun, but many people will defend the UMP-45 stating that it's a great gun because it has high damage and is very easy to control. And the reason the UMP-45 is so easy to control is because it's a submachine gun that fires at 600 rounds per minute. So I can understand to a degree why some players, and particularly console players, may really like this gun. But how good or bad a weapon is should not be determined by how good you are at controlling it. For instance, take someone who's never played a first-person shooter before. Drop them into a T-Hunt with the F2 and the UMP-45. They will prefer the UMP-45 because it is easier to control. But regardless of their skill level, we all know the F2 is far superior in every way. I mean, when I use the UMP-45, the fire rate is so slow that I have to lead the target because their head moves so much in between shots. And so, you may think that if Castle's pick rate is so low, and he has one of the worst weapons, Ubisoft should give him a better weapon. But this would actually create a problem. Actually, 2 problems would occur if Castle was given a great SMG. The first problem would be how overwhelming he would be in the higher ranks. The higher ranks, and especially Pro League, are already having a problem where the entire round is dedicated to getting rid of defender utility. So you would think that Castle having 3 armor panels would, make this problem worse. Well, surprisingly, Castle has such a low pick rate that it doesn't show up enough for this to actually be a problem. However, by giving him a better primary and giving him greater fragging potential, this will only increase the utility problem that takes place in the higher ranks and gives people a better incentive to pick him. If you're an attacker going up against Castle, Melusi, or Maestro, that's the minimum of 8 devices that you have to clear. And buffing Castle to the point where he's picked in most rounds will only make this problem so much worse. Another problem that would occur by giving Castle an amazing primary would be that lower level players would be more likely to play him. And I kind of sound like a dick for making this point, but lower ranking players who choose to play Castle are more likely to hurt your team rather than to help. This has to do with the skill gap that I mentioned. If you have a player who doesn't know how to play Castle and they play Castle, they will turn the round into a 6v4. To play Castle effectively, you have to know the layout of the map and know the popular ways for attackers to push to be effective with him. You also have to be aware of the popular lines of sight that you have to barricade as Castle. So when you get a level 30 who has very little map knowledge and game sense, blocking entry into sight with Castle barricades, because Castle has a great gun now, that will only hurt you as a team. So just giving Castle a better primary would only make things worse in my opinion. But what about his gadget? What about the armor panels? Could Ubisoft change those in a way that would make him more playable? I doubt it. And the reason I say that is, as I stated earlier, is because of the skill gap between high and low players and the utility meta that happens at the higher ranks. If you were to give Castle, for example, an extra armor panel, that would just insanely increase his pick rate, but that would only worsen the utility problem that Ubi is already trying to crack down on. For instance, Goyo had a shield removed and only has 2 shields now. And a lot of people were confused as to why they were doing that, considering that he has a very, very low pick rate. And that's because of the utility meta in Pro League. He was just so overpowered in Pro League. By forcing attackers to deal with 3 shields that have the ability to kill you, and you always have to deal with them, it made Goyo very oppressive in the Pro League. So giving an extra armor panel to increase Castle's pick rate will only worsen the utility problem that happens in the Pro League and higher ranks, and make him more annoying for the lower ranking players. And if they decided to take away an armor panel for some reason, that would just make him even more useless, and he'd be way better off picking a Melusi or a Goyo. So this is the dilemma that we find ourselves in. Make Castle better and he dominates in the Pro League, but that makes the casual players happy. Make him worse and nobody is happy. And this is why I'm not really expecting much to change with Castle. The only way I see Ubisoft solving this problem with Castle and making him more viable for the casual players and not overpowered for the pros is to sort of meet it halfway. In my opinion, the best thing that they could do for Castle would be to give him a better primary and take away one of his armor panels. And so if that were to happen in terms of overall utility, his gadget would be pretty underwhelming in terms of overall utility. However, the players are creative and they would find ways to make him extremely effective with 2 panels instead of 3, and give him more fragment potential. Maybe give him the Roni or the FMG9. Or maybe they could take away one of his panels and actually give a buff to his panels by, punishing players who don't have breaching charges or didn't bring a Ash or a Sledge to get rid of them, by making it to where it takes more melee hits in order to take down the panel. Or an idea that I've always had is to make it to where drones aren't able to go underneath panels. Making it flush with the floor to where drones can't get through it and you can't get your feet shot from it will increase his utility greatly and will add like sort of another option to, Mute and Mozzie. Those operators are great for intel denial, but this would be some form of intel denial that I think would be really, really effective. Especially when you consider how important it is to have drones and being able to drone out. But this skill gap that comes with Castle has really made this dilemma to where some consider him one of the worst operators in the game, or not the worst operator, a very underwhelming operator, and some people who actually know how to use him and they know the maps, they know how, typically the attackers push, just overall great game sense, those players can just absolutely dominate with Castle. And so it's that skill gap that has led us to this point where Ubisoft can't really do much to him. So I hope this video gave you an idea as to why we haven't really seen any changes from one of the more underperforming operators in Rainbow Six Siege. That's about it for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon, that way you can be notified every time I post a video. And before I go, I just want to give a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. And as I'm writing this script, I had just hit 5,000 subscribers. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's gotten me to this point. I hit 1,000 subs less than a month ago, and it took me 7 months to get to 1,000 subs, and here I am at 5K less than a month from that. So I can't thank you guys enough. Anyways, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. That's it for today. I'm the Senator, and as always, have a good one.